Welcome back to episode 52 of Working Towards Our Purpose. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I'm here. A little check-in before the episode, as I've been doing recently. I'm not feeling that great today. I wasn't when I woke up, and not really sure why. But again, ask yourself how you're feeling today, and then check in with yourself before we get into it. I was trying to rationalize why I wasn't feeling great this morning, because I had a pretty great week so far. I had the past 2 days that felt like really productive, really felt like I got to do the things that I wanted to, got to do some cool things. And yeah, I don't know, I just woke up and was not feeling good. And I didn't get probably enough sleep last night, but I was trying not to rationalize it. And so anyways, I was thinking about today's episode and I had a topic in mind. And once again, I kind of just put that aside, and we have a new topic for today's episode. So today's episode, I want to talk about mental health. I want to talk about depression, and just kind of get into it. And I've been going to therapy for probably 6 or 7 years now, and it took me a really long time to identify with the word depression, because I always just assumed that other people had it worse, and didn't really like to use the word. Didn't really, I guess at first I just didn't really understand it or knew what it meant. But then after going through many different therapy sessions and kind of getting, help from a therapist and hearing kind of her experience with what it is from a clinical sense and everything, started more and more kind of identifying with it. And I still have a hard time talking, or I guess identifying with the word or saying I'm depressed. But it is something that I do struggle with. And I think this morning was an example of that, and just kind of for no reason didn't feel good. And so I kind of wanted to break that down a little bit, because that could mean so many different things. And I'd like to just talk about what it means for me. And of course, that doesn't mean that's what it is for everybody. I think people have many different sort of variations of it, and I don't know, just kind of want to have an open discussion about what depression is for me, in hopes that maybe it connects with someone who's listening. So for me, I think most of the time when I'm feeling depressed, it's sort of a negative spiral that kind of starts undetermined point. It's a lot of negative thinking, a lot of bad thinking about myself, I'm incompetent, or can't do something, or shouldn't be doing something, or a lot of it goes to worthiness. I don't feel worthy of something. I don't feel, and it could be anything really. And it kind of just, when I say spiral, it kind of just goes into it'll start somewhere, and then it just kind of goes to every area of my thinking. And then, it's kind of hard to recover from it sometimes. Or I used to have a harder time trying to get out of that thought process, just the constant negative thinking, that then leads to inaction, usually leads to trying to distract myself with something, or numbing myself with TV or whatever it could be, just to sort of distract yourself from the feeling that you don't want, the uncomfortable feeling, the sort of negative self-talk. So yeah, I mean, even as I'm talking about it, it's really hard to describe. And I think part of the reason why it's hard to describe is at least for me, you forget so easily. I feel when I'm in a negative spiral and feeling depressed, once I'm out of it, I almost completely forget how it feels. So it becomes really hard to sort of describe, I guess. And I think in moments of being actually in sort of a depression and being able to try to communicate with people, with like close friends or like with a therapist, like showing up to therapy depressed, and really sort of like trying to push through how I'm feeling, and like my therapist like forcing me to be like, well, how do you feel? Like, where are you feeling that? What does that mean? I think it maybe sort of that's how I get some sort of inclination of like remembering how I feel. But yeah, it sort of is just like, just feeling like you're not good enough, really. Like, and I know those words don't really like do it justice, but, but that's that's kind of, I think, how my depression shows up. And so it used to be something that I struggled with for like days at a time. I think there was a couple times where it was like maybe a week or more. Again, the memory of recalling it is usually hazy, but, I used to like find myself in, like depressive episodes, I guess, if you'd call it, for like more than a day. Like, you'd go to bed, you wake up, you kind of feel the same way. Thankfully I don't really have too many that last more than a day anymore. And I think that's because I have a lot of tools to try to like recognize what's happening and to try to remedy the situation with another handful of tools that, I have at my disposal now after like working on it and, getting help through therapy and talking to close friends who also experience similar, struggles. And so, the length of it is like, I don't know. I usually find nowadays I find that like, if I can try to find something to like make myself feel good about myself, I can like almost know that like my brain's like lying to me and being like, okay, well, these thoughts are just thoughts. They're not really who I am. And that's the hard part with depression. Like you think that your thoughts are who you are, and that's not true. Your thoughts, you can have many thoughts about a million different things every day, and they don't mean that like that's who you are as a person, or, just because you have a bad thought doesn't mean like you're a bad person. So kind of separating yourself from the thoughts and like who you are as a value of a human. So I think a lot of times I always try to justify like why it's happening, and I'll be like, oh, I feel bad because I did this or because I messed this up or whatever. But I think part of the letting go of it is helpful, because like sometimes there isn't really a reason, or maybe you can't find the reason. It's just happening. It just is what it is. And I think acceptance is been helpful for me to try to like get through it, instead of like pushing back against it. Cause that's, I think when it stays longer is when I'm resisting it and I'm pushing it away and I'm like, no, this isn't, no, I don't like this. No, I don't like this. And then it just kind of ends up staying longer. Whereas if I can sort of accept it and be like, okay, this is how I'm feeling, then I notice that it kind of just like passes through me instead of like getting caught to me. So yeah, I don't know. So the idea of this episode was to kind of just describe this. And it is getting, I do want to get to like kind of wrap up with a point, but yeah, I think, I also want to say that like, I think a lot of times, people still like, this isn't like an uncommon thing. Like a lot of people struggle with this. And I think that a lot of times we can forget that like people struggle with things, and like, I don't know, it just reminds me of like, you never know what somebody's going through in their own head. Like they could seem completely fine and completely normal. And, I think that's why I like to try to not assume bad of people. And like, even if somebody does something that like upsets you or whatever, it's like, well, maybe they're going through something, like, I don't know. So I don't know, I guess just maybe a little reminder to like, maybe try to be a little kinder to the person next to you, because you don't know really what they're going through. So yeah, I think I like to try try to do that. But so anyways, the point that I kind of want to get to is like, how to, I guess I just want to talk about like my experience of like pulling myself out of it this morning. Because so yeah, I woke up, I was like really thinking about the podcast and I was like, oh, I don't think I can do this today. Like the topic that I want to talk about, I don't feel it today, and I don't feel like I can talk about it. And I always go for a run in the morning. I always like do yoga and meditate before a podcast, because I really want to get my head in the right space before I record. And today I did yoga, I meditated, and I was like really close to not going for a run, but I was like, just get out there because you'll feel better. I went out for a run, and then during my run, as I alluded to earlier, like having these tools that I have at my disposal now, something popped into my head, and I was like, oh yeah, like gratitude. When I'm when I'm feeling depressed, or when I'm like in a bad mood, or even having a bad day, a tool that I can use is practicing gratitude, and literally just taking one thing and being like, oh, I'm grateful for this. And that has been really helpful for me in the past, and it was really helpful for me today, because the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh, I get to record this podcast today. Like that's something that like I feel like I want to be doing. I feel like I want to be using my voice, that I'm able to do that. And I feel grateful to be able to do something that I care about and believe in. And because that wasn't my experience for so long with work, but like I didn't feel like I cared about it. I didn't feel connected to it. I didn't feel like I was making any positive impact. So here now I do feel like that, and I'm truly grateful for that. And I think that, just thinking about that completely like changed it. Like you get out of a rut, like it pushed me out of a rut, and I was like, oh wow, that is like, I do want to like appreciate that, because I think it's important. And yeah, so I think the last thing that I kind of want to tie to it too was like, the quote that I read in last episode, about Dharma. And, if you haven't listened to it, you can go listen to it. It was just the episode before this, episode 51. Cause I can't remember exactly what it was right now. But it was about like, if you're working in your Dharma, if you're working with purpose, then it doesn't eliminate the suffering, but it gives reason to the suffering to make it worthwhile. And as I was running, I was thinking about that, and I was like, that's what this feels like. That this feels like an example of what that quote was. It feels like an example of what Dharma is. I didn't want to do this, but I pushed myself to try and show up in the best way that I could, because it's something that I feel called to do, and I feel is an important thing to me, and is true to me. So I've had so many jobs before where like, I woke up feeling depressed, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be on my phone today. I'm just going to try to get through the day. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'll just, suck it up for 8 hours. Then I'll go home and I'll go to sleep, or I'll go watch TV or something. But now I didn't want to do that. I wanted to push myself to, and I say push, but like, gently push myself, to show up, because I feel that this is important to me. And I feel that, I don't know. I feel like I'm not doing a good job articulating it, but I think you get what I mean. It feels important enough to me to like push through the uncomfortable feelings, the depression, to get here anyways, to show up the best that I can, because I feel that it's important to me. And yeah, it was just kind of a cool moment while I was running, and it really made me feel good about it, and feel good about what I'm doing. So, yeah. And I don't say that to like, maybe make someone feel bad who isn't, who maybe is in an opposite position. But more so as an example of like me feeling that this idea of Dharma or purpose is sort of a happening or is a true thing, that it exists and it's something to strive for maybe. I don't know. I don't really know, I guess what I'm trying to say, but yeah, I just wanted to share that with you today because I thought it was significant for me. And yeah, just sort of like I think, again, with kind of like leaning into the idea of like trying to show up as authentic as I can with this podcast and not trying to be somebody that I'm not, and just trying to be vulnerable and authentic. And that's what felt authentic to me today. So yeah, hopefully it was helpful for you. And yeah, I think the last thing that maybe I wanted to say, I have on my noteboard here, that I think also during my run, I was reminded of something that I read recently in one of the books that I'm reading. I'm not sure which one, but it was saying something about how like the thing that you perceive as your weakness is actually like your strength, and I think that for me, I've always perceived like my depression as a weakness, as like something wrong with me. And I don't know. I don't want to say it's a strength, but well, maybe I do. I think it's given me empathy to be able to understand other people who go through the same thing. But I also think that like turning it into this podcast today is a strength. Turning it into something that is constructive and positive is a strength, because I could have went on with my day just feeling bad about myself, and I didn't. Like, I was able to reframe it, pull myself out of it, and then make sort of an episode that hopefully resonates with people. So yeah, again, I don't say that to say like, if you didn't do that today, then like I'm better than you or anything, but just saying that to say like our weaknesses can be our strengths. And a lot of times I think because we've suffered through something, we now have a new perspective that can help us in the future. So I just wanted to say that because I think that that's important too. But yeah, so that's all I got for you today. Thank you for listening as always. I do appreciate it, even a little bit more today. And yeah, I will see you on another episode real soon. I hope you have a good rest of your week. Thanks for listening.